Sarah Chen sat perfectly still in the medical scanner. The machine hummed around her, blue lights moving up and down her body. She had done this 100 times back on Earth, but never in an alien medical bay. The room smelled strange, like copper and something sweet she couldn't name. "Please remain calm," Dr. Voss said from behind his console. He was a Keltharian, tall and gray-skinned, with 4 arms that moved independently. 2 of his hands worked the controls while the other 2 held data tablets. "The scan will complete in 30 seconds. Sarah tried not to smile. Calm was her default setting. She'd flown rescue helicopters through hurricanes back home. A medical scan was nothing. She watched the alien doctor's face, trying to read his expression. His large black eyes reflected the scanner's lights. The machine beeped. Then it beeped again, faster. Dr. Voss's hands froze over the controls, all 4 of them. "Is something wrong?" Sarah asked. Dr. Voss didn't answer immediately. His eyes moved rapidly across the screens, his head tilting in what Sarah had learned was the Keltharian equivalent of confusion. Then the alarms started. Loud, urgent sounds that made Sarah's heart jump. 3 more medical staff rushed into the room. They surrounded Dr. Voss's console, speaking rapidly in their own language. Sarah heard her name several times. She sat up slowly. "Doctor? What's happening?" Dr. Voss turned to face her. His expression was grave. "Lieutenant Chen, please do not be alarmed, but your scan has revealed a serious medical condition. Your cardiovascular system is operating at catastrophic levels." Sarah blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" One of the other doctors, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke in a translator-generated voice. "Your heart rate variability is in the fatal range for all known species. Your stress hormones are elevated to crisis levels. Your neural responses indicate constant fight-or-flight activation." "But I feel fine," Sarah said, confused. "I passed all my Earth medical exams. I'm healthy." Dr. Voss approached her slowly, as if she might collapse at any moment. "Lieutenant, your body is in a state of constant emergency. According to these readings, you should be experiencing severe panic, possibly cardiac arrest. How do you feel right now?" "Honestly?" Sarah thought about it. "Normal? Maybe a little curious about why everyone's so worried?" The doctors exchanged looks that Sarah couldn't interpret. Dr. Voss pulled up a holographic display and turned it toward her. "These are normal readings for a Keltharian at rest." The lines on the graph were smooth and steady, barely moving. "These are your readings." The new lines jumped and spiked like a mountain range. "Your resting state," Dr. Voss continued, "matches what we would see in a Keltharian facing immediate death. Your body is working harder than a marathon runner, yet you claim to feel fine." Sarah stared at the graphs. "But that's just how humans are. Our hearts beat faster than yours. We run warmer. We have medical data from 6 other humans who joined the fleet," another doctor interrupted. "They all show similar readings. We believed it was a scanning error, but 7 identical errors are not possible." Dr. Voss's voice was gentle but firm. "Lieutenant Chen, I am recommending immediate medical discharge. You need to return to Earth for treatment before your condition deteriorates further. I'm surprised you've remained conscious this long." The words hit Sarah like cold water. She'd trained for 2 years to join the United Galactic Fleet. She'd beaten out 300 other applicants for her spot. She'd left everything behind for this chance to explore the stars, to represent humanity among the consortium of civilized worlds. "No," she said quietly. "I understand this is difficult." "No," Sarah repeated louder. "I'm not sick. I'm human. There's a difference." Dr. Voss's 4 hands moved in a gesture Sarah had learned meant sympathy. "I have reviewed human medical literature that your people provided. Nothing in it explains these readings. Your own doctors have never described this level of cardiovascular activity as normal." "That's because they measured us against ourselves, not against you," Sarah argued, sliding off the examination table. Our normal is different from your normal. Different, yes, but this, Dr. Voss gestured at the displays. This level of biological stress would kill most species within hours. You cannot serve in the fleet with this condition. You would be a liability in any crisis situation. Sarah felt frustration building in her chest. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. The monitors behind her beeped faster. Dr. Voss looked at them with alarm. You see? Your heart rate just increased 15%. What caused that? I'm frustrated, Sarah admitted. But I'm not dying, doctor. I'm just trying to make you understand. The scan does not lie, Lieutenant. Your biology is crying out in distress. Sarah looked at the floor, then back at the doctor. I need to speak with Captain Threll. Dr. Voss hesitated. The captain is very busy with integration procedures. Then he can spare 5 minutes to tell me I'm being kicked out of the fleet. Sarah's voice was steady but had an edge to it. I deserve that much. The doctors conferred quietly. Finally, Dr. Voss nodded. Very well, but you must promise to report any symptoms immediately. Dizziness, chest pain, difficulty breathing. I promise, Sarah said. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in Captain Threll's office. The avian commander was covered in blue and silver feathers, his sharp eyes regarding her from a face that was part bird, part something entirely alien. He folded his wing arms across his chest. Dr. Voss has sent me his report, Threll said, his voice a melodic chirp filtered through a translator. He recommends your immediate discharge on medical grounds. Captain, Threll held up one wing hand. However, I am not convinced. Your people are new to the consortium. Perhaps there are things about human biology we do not yet understand. He paused, considering. Dr. Voss is an excellent physician, but he is cautious by nature. His species evolved on a stable, peaceful world. They do not understand variability well. Sarah felt a spark of hope. Sir, I can prove I'm fit for duty. Give me a chance. What do you propose? A probationary period. Monitor me. Test me. Let me show you that these readings don't mean what Dr. Voss thinks they mean. Captain Threll was quiet for a long moment. His feathers ruffled, a sign Sarah didn't know how to read. Then he spoke. Very well, Lieutenant Chen. 1 month. You will report to Dr. Voss daily for monitoring. You will be assigned to non-critical duties. If you show any signs of the deterioration he predicts, you will accept immediate discharge. Agreed? Agreed, sir. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. If Dr. Voss is correct, I may be putting your life at risk. The captain's eyes were sharp. But I confess I am curious. Your people intrigue me, Lieutenant. You seem so fragile, yet you crossed the stars to join us. That takes something we call kreshta in my language. Your translator would call it courage. Sarah saluted. We have a word for it too, sir. As she left the office, Sarah felt her heart beating fast in her chest, not from fear or panic, but from determination. She had 1 month to prove that being human wasn't a weakness. She had no idea she was about to prove something far more important. 3 weeks of cargo duty felt like 3 years. Sarah stood in loading bay 4, checking inventory lists on her data pad while massive containers were moved by automated systems. It was mindless work, the kind that made her brain itch with boredom. She'd gone from flying rescue missions to counting boxes. Lieutenant Chen, please report to Medical Bay 2. Dr. Voss's voice came through her communicator. Sarah sighed. This was the 3rd time today. On my way, Doctor. She found Dr. Voss in his office, surrounded by holographic displays showing what looked like heartbeat patterns. He gestured to a chair with 2 of his 4 hands, while the other 2 continued manipulating data. Your daily readings are consistent with the initial scan, he said without preamble. Elevated across all metrics. Yet you show no cognitive impairment, no physical distress. It is... Fascinating. I keep telling you I'm fine. Yes, but what is fine for a human? Dr. Voss leaned forward, his black eyes studying her. I have been reading about your species' evolution. Your world, Earth, it is remarkable. Large predators, extreme weather, diseases, natural disasters. Your people hunted animals by chasing them until they collapsed from exhaustion. Is this true? Sarah nodded. Persistence hunting. We're not the fastest or strongest, but we can keep going. Humans are endurance specialists. And your heart, it evolved to support this? To keep you moving under stress? I guess so. We needed to be able to run, fight, react quickly. Our bodies had to handle danger as normal. Dr. Voss made a note. My species evolved on Kelthera. Stable climate, few predators, abundant resources. We developed efficiency, not endurance. When we face danger, our bodies conserve energy, slow down to avoid system shock. He paused. Your bodies do the opposite. They accelerate. Is that bad? It explains much. But it also worries me. Lieutenant, in the fleet, we face situations that would trigger your crisis biology. How can you function when your body is constantly prepared for death? Sarah thought about how to explain it. It's not constant. It's ready. There's a difference. My body can handle stress because it was made for it. Yours conserves energy because it wasn't. Before Dr. Voss could respond, someone knocked on the door. A being that looked like a large mantis with iridescent green armor entered. Sarah recognized Ensign Krill, a Chiton who worked in communications. Dr. Voss, I apologize for interrupting, Krill said, his translator turning his clicks and chirps into words. I came for my scheduled anxiety treatment. Of course, Ensign. Please come in. Dr. Voss turned to Sarah. We will continue this discussion tomorrow, Lieutenant. Sarah stood to leave, but Krill's antennae moved in her direction. Lieutenant Chen, you are one of the humans, yes? That's right. Might I speak with you after my appointment? Sarah was surprised but nodded. Sure. I'll be in the observation lounge. 40 minutes later, Krill found her looking out at the stars. The Chiton moved nervously. His legs clicking against the floor in a rhythm Sarah had learned meant anxiety. Thank you for waiting, Krill said. I wanted to ask you about courage. Courage? Yes. You see, my species evolved as prey. For millions of years we were hunted. It shaped our biology, our psychology. We are naturally cautious, fearful. Dr. Voss helps me manage the anxiety so I can serve in the fleet. Krill's antennae drooped. But humans, you evolved as hunters, yes? You know no fear? Sarah almost laughed, but stopped herself. No, we definitely know fear. We feel it all the time. But you do not let it stop you. I have heard stories. Humans do things other species consider reckless. Why? Sarah chose her words carefully. Fear is information, not a command. When I'm scared, my body is telling me something might be dangerous. But I get to decide what to do with that information. Sometimes the right choice is to be careful. Sometimes it's to act anyway. Krill's antennae perked up. Act anyway. Despite the fear? That's what courage is. It's not about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway. They talked for another hour. Sarah found herself enjoying Krill's company. He was thoughtful and curious, asking questions about Earth and human culture. She learned about Chiton society, their emphasis on community and safety. When the alarm sounded, they both jumped. Coolant leak in Bay 7, the automated system announced. Leak contained, manual valve reset required. Sarah's communicator buzzed. Lieutenant Chen, this is engineering. We need someone to reset the valve in Bay 7. Can you? I'll do it, Sarah said immediately, already moving toward the door. Sarah, wait, Krill called after her. The automated message said leak contained, not safe. There could be residual contamination. That's why they need it done manually. The automated systems can't handle it. Sarah grabbed an environmental suit from the emergency locker. But if something goes wrong, then I'll be careful. It's fine, Krill. The Chiton watched her suit up and head toward Bay 7, his antennae quivering with worry. Dr. Voss was monitoring the situation from Medical Bay, Sarah's biometrics displayed on his screen. When she entered Bay 7, he saw her heart rate increase slightly. Not much, just a modest elevation. She approached the valve, assessed the situation, and began the reset procedure. To Dr. Voss, this was incredible. A potentially lethal situation, and her body responded with what his species would consider mild exercise levels. He watched as she worked efficiently, her breathing steady, her movements precise. No panic, no biological shutdown, just focused action. 15 minutes later, Sarah emerged from Bay 7 and reported the valve reset to engineering. Krill was waiting outside, his relief obvious. "You are unharmed?" "Of course. It wasn't that dangerous. Your heart rate barely changed," Sarah shrugged, pulling off the environmental suit. "Why would it? I knew what I was doing." Dr. Voss appeared in the corridor, his 4 arms holding various medical scanners. "Lieutenant Chen, I was monitoring your biometrics during the incident." "Great. More evidence I'm a medical disaster?" "No," Dr. Voss said slowly. "Evidence that perhaps I misunderstood what your readings mean. You walked into a potentially fatal situation with biological responses suggesting mild concern. What I thought was hyperactivity may simply be readiness." Sarah smiled. "Now you're getting it. But this raises new questions. If humans can maintain function under stress that would incapacitate other species, what does this mean for fleet operations? For combat scenarios?" Dr. Voss paused. "Lieutenant, are all humans like you?" "More or less. Some are braver, some more cautious. But yeah, we're all built the same way." Krill spoke up quietly. "Perhaps the question is not whether humans are too hyperactive for the fleet, but whether the fleet has been too limited in understanding what different species can offer." Dr. Voss looked at the chitin, then at Sarah. "Perhaps you are right, Ensign." That night, Sarah lay in her quarters thinking about the day. She'd done something routine, something any rescue pilot would do without thinking. But to the aliens, it was remarkable. The gap between human normal and alien normal was bigger than she'd realized. Her communicator buzzed, a message from Dr. Voss. "Medical restriction lifted for non-combat duties. Continue daily monitoring. I believe we have much to learn from humans, Lieutenant. And perhaps you have much to teach us." Sarah smiled and closed her eyes. She was one step closer to proving she belonged here. The distress call came in during the night shift. Sarah was in the mess hall with Krill when Captain Threll's voice echoed through the ship. "All hands to battle stations. We have received a distress signal from the research vessel Morning Light. They are under attack by raiders in the Korvax Nebula. Estimated arrival time, 4 hours." Sarah was on her feet immediately, her training taking over. Around her, the ship transformed into organized chaos. Crew members rushed to their stations. Fighter pilots sprinted toward the hangar bay. Sarah ran with them, then stopped. She was still on medical restriction for combat operations. "Sarah," Krill caught up to her. "Are you not going to the hangar?" "I can't. I'm not cleared for combat." The words tasted bitter in her mouth. From his medical bay, Dr. Voss watched the crew's biometric readings on his displays. The ship was preparing for battle, and the stress was showing. Keltharian heart rates were climbing. Chitin anxiety levels were spiking. Even the normally calm avians showed elevated markers. 4 hours later, they arrived at the Korvax Nebula. The scene was worse than expected. The research vessel was dead in space, its engines destroyed. 3 raider ships circled it like sharks, firing on any escape pods that launched. "All fighters launch!" Captain Threll ordered. "Engage the enemy. Protect the survivors." Sarah watched from the observation deck as the fleet's fighters screamed out of the hangar bay. 20 fighters against 3 large raider vessels. The odds weren't great, but they should be manageable. The first exchange shattered that hope. The raiders fought with brutal efficiency, their weapons tearing through shields like paper. 3 fleet fighters exploded in the first minute. The others scattered, trying to regroup. Dr. Bacteau? Voss's displays told a horrifying story. The pilots' stress levels were climbing into dangerous territory. Keltharian pilots were experiencing biological shutdown, their bodies literally unable to maintain function under the fear. Chiton pilots were triggering panic responses. Even experienced crews were faltering. "Flight leader down," someone reported over the comms. "Alpha Wing taking heavy casualties." Sarah grabbed her communicator. "Bridge, this is Lieutenant Chen. Request permission to launch." "Negative, Lieutenant. You are not combat certified." The response was automatic, distracted. "Then I'm requesting emergency combat clearance. You need pilots." There was a pause. Then Captain Threll's voice. "Dr. Voss, what is your medical opinion?" In the medical bay, Dr. Voss stared at his screens. Half his pilots were shutting down. Their bodies were betraying them, unable to sustain the terror of combat. He thought about Sarah's readings, her steady heart rate during the coolant leak, the way humans operated in crisis. "Clear her for combat," he said. "Clear all the humans." Sarah didn't wait for confirmation. She was already running to the hangar bay. 5 other human crew members had the same idea, converging from different parts of the ship. They geared up in record time, climbing into fighters designed for alien physiologies and making adjustments on the fly. "Human Wing, this is Lieutenant Chen. Communication check." 5 voices responded, nervous but determined. "We're probably going to die," one of them said, a human named Marcus. "Just wanted to say that out loud." "We might," Sarah agreed. "But the people on that research vessel definitely will if we don't help. Focus on what needs to be done." She launched her fighter into the chaos of battle. Immediately, target warnings screamed at her. The raiders had noticed the new arrivals and were moving to engage. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Her hands were slick with sweat. Her body was screaming danger at her, every nerve on fire with adrenaline. She was terrified. She flew anyway. Dr. Voss watched Sarah's biometrics. Her heart rate was elevated, her stress hormones high. But unlike the alien pilots, she wasn't shutting down. The fear was there, obvious in every reading. But she was functioning through it, using it, channeling it into focus. "All units, form on me," Sarah called. "We're going to draw their fire away from the disabled ship." "That's suicide," someone responded. "It's the mission. Follow my lead." Sarah dove toward the nearest raider, her fighter's weapons blazing. The enemy ship turned to pursue her, taking the bait. She led it on a wild chase through the debris field, using the destroyed ship parts as cover. "Chen, you've got 2 more on your tail." "I know. That's the idea. Everyone else, hit them while they're focused on me." It was a dangerous plan, the kind that relied on split-second timing and precision flying, the kind that required a pilot to stay calm while death chased them through a debris field. The human pilots executed it perfectly. Marcus came in from above, his weapons tearing into the first raider's engines. Another human, Li Wei, targeted the second raider's weapon systems. Sarah pulled a maneuver that should have been impossible, spinning her fighter through a gap between 2 destroyed hull sections that was barely wider than her ship. The raiders couldn't follow. They collided with the debris. One exploded, the other spun away, damaged. "Form up," Sarah called. "We're not done yet." Something changed in that moment. The other fleet pilots saw what the humans were doing, saw them operating in conditions that should have caused complete biological shutdown, saw them afraid but fighting anyway. Krill's voice came over the comm. "This is Ensign Krill. I am joining the human wing." "Krill, no," Sarah said. "Your anxiety is my problem to overcome. You taught me that courage is acting despite fear. It is time I learned the lesson." His voice shook, but his fighter moved into formation beside Sarah's. Then more voices. A Keltharian pilot, 2 avians, a chitin squadron. One by one, they pushed through their biological fear responses, inspired by the human's example. The battle turned. The raiders found themselves facing not a panicked, scattered defense, but a coordinated assault. The fleet pilots flew like they'd never flown before, pushing past their own limitations. The third raider tried to flee. Sarah pursued, her fighter's weapons locked on target. She could end this, destroy the enemy ship. Her finger hovered over the firing trigger. "They're retreating," she said over the comm. "Let them go. Our mission was to save the research vessel, not seek revenge." The raider jumped to hyperspace. The battle was over. Sarah returned to the hangar bay on fumes, her fighter barely functional. She climbed out and collapsed, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Dr. Voss was waiting with a medical team. "I'm fine," Sarah muttered. "Just tired." "I know," Dr. Voss said gently. "I watched your readings. You were terrified the entire time." "Yeah, I was. But you flew anyway. You all did." He helped her to her feet. "We have much to discuss, Lieutenant Chen. The fleet has much to learn." In the debriefing room, Captain Threll reviewed the battle data. The human pilots had taken risks that should have been fatal. They'd sustained stress levels that should have caused biological collapse. But they'd saved the research vessel and 73 lives. More importantly, they'd shown the fleet something new. That fear didn't have to mean failure. That courage could be learned, not just inherited from peaceful evolution. The message from Fleet Command came 3 hours later. Admiral Kale requests immediate conference regarding combat performance of human personnel. Priority 1. Sarah looked at Dr. Voss. "What does that mean?" "It means," the doctor said, "that everything is about to change." The tribunal room on Keltharia Prime was designed to be impressive. Massive windows overlooked the planet below, and the walls displayed the emblems of every species in the consortium. 7 admirals sat in a semicircle, representing the major civilizations of the fleet. Sarah stood in the center, feeling very small and very human. Admiral Kyle, a distinguished Keltharian with silver markings on his gray skin, spoke first. "Lieutenant Chen, we have reviewed your combat footage and biometric data from the Korvax Nebula engagement. The results are unprecedented." A holographic display appeared in the air, showing Sarah's fighter weaving through the debris field with 3 raiders in pursuit. Next to it, her vital signs played out like a medical nightmare. Heart rate spiking, stress hormones flooding her system, every indicator screaming crisis. "By our understanding of biology," Kale continued, "you should have been incapacitated. Yet you performed complex maneuvers that require exceptional clarity of thought. How is this possible?" Sarah took a breath. "Permission to speak freely, Admiral?" "Granted. That's just how humans work. We evolved on a world where danger was normal. Our bodies learned to function through fear, not despite it. The adrenaline, the elevated heart rate, that's not a malfunction. That's the system working correctly." A chitin admiral, her exoskeleton polished to a shine, leaned forward. "But surely there must be limits. Your body cannot sustain this indefinitely." "No species can fight forever," Sarah agreed. "But humans can sustain high-stress operations longer than most. It's what we were made for." Dr. Voss stepped forward. He'd been invited to present his findings. "Admirals, if I may, I have studied human physiology extensively over the past month. What we initially diagnosed as a medical crisis is actually an evolutionary advantage. Humans possess a unique capacity for what they call courage, the ability to act despite fear." He brought up comparative data. During the Korvax battle, non-human pilots experienced stress levels that triggered biological shutdown. Their bodies prioritized survival by reducing function. Human pilots experienced the same fear, but their biology allowed them to maintain operational capacity. He paused. And remarkably, watching humans function under stress helped other species push past their own limitations. An avian admiral, his blue feathers ruffled with concern, spoke up. "This is fascinating, but what are you proposing? That we rely on humans for all dangerous operations?" Admiral Kale answered. "I am proposing the Vanguard Protocol. We deploy human squadrons as first response units in high-stress scenarios. We use their biological advantages where they are most needed." Sarah felt her stomach drop. She'd been afraid of this. "With respect, Admiral, that sounds like using humans as expendable troops." The room went silent. Several admirals looked shocked that she would challenge a superior officer so directly. Kyle's expression was unreadable. "Explain." "You're talking about sending humans into situations where other species can't function. That's not integration. That's segregation. You're making us the cannon fodder because we can handle what others can't." Sarah's voice was steady but firm. "That's not why we joined the fleet." Before Kale could respond, another voice cut in. "Perhaps that is because humans do not truly understand fear." Lieutenant Varn entered the room. The Keltharian officer was decorated and respected, someone Sarah had seen around the fleet but never worked with directly. His tone was polite but dismissive. "I mean no disrespect," Varn continued, "but humans are a young species. You have not experienced the horrors that older civilizations have faced. Your bravery may simply be ignorance. You do not fear because you do not comprehend true danger." Sarah felt anger flash through her, but she controlled it. "You think we don't understand fear? I think you lack the wisdom to properly assess threat. Your biology is primitive, reacting to stimuli without higher reasoning." "My biology kept me alive in the Korvax Nebula," Sarah shot back. "And it's not primitive, it's adapted. There's a difference." Varn made a dismissive gesture. "Adapted for a violent backwards world. The consortium represents enlightened civilization. Perhaps humans are simply too savage for—" "Stop!" Sarah's voice was quiet but cut through the room. "You want to talk about fear? Let me tell you about fear." She walked closer to the admirals, meeting their eyes one by one. "When I was 19, I pulled a family out of a burning building. I was so scared I could barely breathe. My hands shook so badly I almost couldn't hold the child I was carrying. I knew the building could collapse. I knew I might die. I understood the danger perfectly." The room was absolutely silent. "When I was 23, I flew into a hurricane to rescue fishermen from a sinking boat. I'd seen the weather reports. I knew the wind speeds. I calculated the odds of making it back. They weren't good. I was terrified." Sarah's voice grew stronger. "I went anyway. Not because I didn't understand the danger, but because I understood that people would die if I didn't." She turned to face Varn directly. "Every human in the fleet has stories like this. We've all been scared. We've all faced death. And we've all made the choice to act despite that fear. That's not ignorance, Lieutenant. That's not savagery. That's courage." Dr. Voss spoke quietly. "In all my medical scans, I can see fear in human biology. Their bodies know the danger, but they have developed psychological mechanisms to override biological panic. They choose to be brave." Krill's voice came from the back of the room. Sarah hadn't realized he'd been allowed to attend. "If I may speak, Admirals, I am Chiton. My species evolved as prey. Fear is in our genetic memory. Every instinct tells us to hide, to flee." He stepped forward, his legs clicking nervously. "Lieutenant Chen taught me that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite it. Humans do not lack fear. They master it. There is a profound difference." Admiral Kale studied Sarah for a long moment. You object to the Vanguard Protocol because you believe it exploits human capabilities. I object because it treats us as tools instead of partners. Yes, humans can handle high stress better than some species. But we didn't join the fleet to be your shock troops. We joined to be part of something bigger than ourselves. To learn from you and teach you in return. Sarah paused. If you want humans to lead dangerous missions, fine. But not because we're expendable. Because we're willing. And because we choose to serve alongside you, not in front of you. The admirals conferred quietly. Sarah stood at attention, her heart pounding. She'd probably just ended her career, but the words had needed to be said. Finally, Admiral Kyle spoke. You are correct, Lieutenant Chen. We were thinking tactically, not ethically. He looked at the other admirals who nodded agreement. The Vanguard initiative will proceed, but with modifications. It will be voluntary, open to all species who wish to train in high-stress operations. Its purpose will be to teach courage, not to exploit it. He stood, and the other admirals followed. Humans will be integrated fully into fleet operations at all levels, and Lieutenant Chen, you are hereby appointed as the primary instructor for the initiative. You will teach us what your species has learned about facing fear. Sarah felt relief wash over her. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. As the tribunal ended, Dr. Voss approached her. That was well said. Though you took a significant risk challenging Admiral Kale. Sometimes the right thing is risky, Sarah said with a slight smile. Indeed. And perhaps that is the most important lesson humans can teach us. The alarm started then, cutting off any further conversation. Emergency klaxons echoed through the station. An automated voice announced, Alert! Long-range scanners detect massive raider fleet approaching frontier colonies. Estimated strength, 60 vessels. All fleet personnel to battle stations. Sarah and Dr. Voss locked eyes. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The briefing room aboard the flagship Eternal Vigilance was packed with officers from every species in the fleet. Holographic displays showed the approaching raider force, 60 ships in a tight formation, heading directly for 3 civilian colonies on the frontier. The numbers were terrifying. Admiral Kale stood before the assembled officers, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. Intelligence estimates the raider fleet will reach the colonies in 6 hours. The civilian evacuation will take 14 hours minimum. He paused, letting the implications sink in. We cannot evacuate everyone in time. Sarah stood among the human contingent, her mind racing. Around her, she could feel the weight of despair settling over the room. The math was simple and brutal. Thousands would die. Our strategy will be defensive, Kale continued. We will form a protective screen around the colonies, hold as long as possible, and evacuate as many civilians as we can. We must accept that we cannot save everyone. Sarah's hand went up. Admiral, requesting permission to speak. Kyle looked at her, his expression guarded. Lieutenant Chen, what is it? What if we didn't defend? What if we attacked? The room erupted in murmurs. A Keltharian officer near Sarah shook his head. Suicide. Their fleet is twice our size. I'm not suggesting we fight them head-on, Sarah said quickly. But what if a strike wing engaged them in the Korvax debris field? We could use the environment, hit-and-run tactics, slow them down, buy time for the evacuation. Captain Threll, who had arrived with his ship an hour ago, stepped forward. Lieutenant, you understand what you're proposing? A small force against a massive fleet? In a debris field where sensors barely work? Estimated survival rate would be less than 30%. Yes, sir. I understand. Admiral Kale's voice was cold. We would need pilots willing to fly what amounts to a delaying action with almost certain death. What species would volunteer for such a mission? Sarah looked around the room at the other humans present. She saw Marcus, Li Wei, and dozens of others who had joined the fleet for the same reasons she had. She saw the answer in their eyes before anyone spoke. Humans would volunteer, sir. One by one, every human in the room stepped forward. 43 pilots, all willing to face death to buy time for strangers. The room fell absolutely silent. Officers from other species stared at the humans in shock and something that looked like shame. Admiral Kale's voice was heavy. "You understand what you are offering? Most of you will not return." "We understand, sir," Sarah said. "But thousands of civilians will die if we don't try." "That's not acceptable." Dr. Voss pushed his way through the crowd. "I volunteer for the medical support team. Someone will need to provide aid." Sarah turned to him, surprised. "Doctor, you don't have to—" "Your species has taught me much about courage, Lieutenant. It is time I applied those lessons." His voice shook slightly, but his resolve was clear. "My people evolved to avoid danger. You evolved to face it. But evolution is not destiny. We can choose to be brave." A Keltharian pilot named Ressa stepped forward, his gray skin pale with fear. I volunteer as well." Then Krill, his chitinous body trembling. "As do I." Lieutenant Varn emerged from the back of the room. His expression was complicated. Respect mixed with humility. "I spoke poorly of humans before. I understand now what I did not see then. You face your fears because you choose honor over safety. That is not savagery. It is the highest form of civilization." He straightened. "I volunteer." More voices joined. Chitin pilots fighting every instinct that told them to flee. Keltharians overcoming their biological programming for efficiency and caution. Avians, whose prey animal ancestors had taught them to escape rather than engage. One by one, officers from every species stepped forward until the strike wing numbered over 80 pilots. Admiral Kale looked at the volunteers, something like wonder in his eyes. "Then we proceed. Launch in 1 hour. May the stars guide you home." The flight to the Korvax debris field was silent. Sarah flew at the head of the formation, her heart pounding hard enough that she could hear it. Her hands gripped the controls, slick with sweat. She was more frightened than she'd ever been in her life. Behind her, 80 pilots faced their own fears. In their ships, their biometrics told the story. Elevated stress across every species, bodies screaming warnings, minds fighting biological imperatives to turn back. They flew forward anyway. The Raider fleet appeared on sensors, massive and deadly. Sarah opened the comm channel. "All units, listen up. We're not here to win. We're here to buy time. Hit them hard, fall back, hit them again. Stay alive as long as you can. Make every minute count." "Understood, Commander," came the responses. Commander? They'd started calling her that without any official designation. It was a title earned through respect, not rank. "One more thing," Sarah added. "I'm scared. I know you all are too. That's okay. Fear means we understand what we're risking, but we're here anyway, and that's what makes this matter. Whatever happens today, I'm honored to fly with you." The Raider fleet entered the debris field. Sarah gave the signal. "All wings engage." The battle was chaos. The humans led the charge, their biology allowing them to maintain function under stress that should have been paralyzing. But they weren't alone. Krill flew beside Sarah, his fear visible in every maneuver but his aim true. Varn pulled off impossible shots while his hands shook on the controls. Ressa screamed in terror over the comm but kept flying. Dr. Voss watched from the medical ship, monitoring everyone's biometrics. What he saw was revolutionary. The non-human pilots were pushing past their biological limits, learning in real time to function through fear. The humans weren't teaching them to be fearless. They were showing them that fear could be overcome. The strike wing held for 2 hours, then 3. Raiders fell to their coordinated attacks, but the fleet paid in blood. Ships exploded. Pilots died. The survival rate Sarah had known was optimistic proved accurate, but they held. After 5 hours, Marcus's voice crackled over the comm, weak but triumphant. "Commander, I'm reading. The evacuation transports are clear. The colonies are empty. All wings, withdraw. Sarah ordered. "Mission accomplished! Get out of here!" The surviving pilots limped back to the fleet as the main force arrived to drive off what remained of the raiders. Of the 80 pilots who had volunteered, 54 made it back. The losses hurt, but thousands of civilians lived because of their sacrifice. Sarah's fighter barely made it to the hangar. As she climbed out, Dr. Voss was waiting, along with Admiral Kale and Captain Threll. "Lieutenant Chen," Kale said formally, "your strike wing held for 9 hours, longest sustained combat operation in fleet history." Sarah looked at the returning pilots, human and alien alike, all bearing the marks of battle. "It wasn't just us, sir. Everyone fought. Everyone chose courage." Dr. Voss stepped forward, holding a datapad. "Admiral, I must share something remarkable. During the battle, I monitored every pilot's biometrics. The non-human pilots achieved stress threshold levels that should have been impossible for their species. They learned to push through biological barriers because they saw it could be done." "Courage is contagious," Krill said quietly, standing beside Sarah. "Humans showed us it was possible. We simply had to choose it." 3 days later, Sarah stood before her first class as an instructor for the Vanguard Initiative. The room was filled with students from every species in the fleet, including several Keltharians. Lieutenant Varn sat in the front row, genuine and humble in his desire to learn. "Courage isn't about being fearless," Sarah began. "It's about being terrified and doing what needs to be done anyway. My species isn't braver than yours. We just had to learn this lesson earlier because our world demanded it. But any species can learn it. You all proved that in the debris field." She looked around the room. "I'm going to teach you what humans know about facing fear. But remember, I'm not teaching you to be human. I'm teaching you to be the best version of whatever species you are. Courage transcends biology. It's a choice we all can make." As the class began, Dr. Voss observed from the back of the room. On his datapad, he pulled up Sarah's medical file, where he'd once written, "Medical anomaly, hyperactive cardiovascular system." He began typing new notes. "Assessment revised. Previous diagnosis reflected evaluator error, not patient pathology. Lieutenant Chen's cardiovascular readings are not hyperactive. They are nominal for human species operating within designed parameters. Human biology is optimized for sustained courage under stress. What was initially flagged as medical crisis is actually evolutionary advantage. Recommendation: other species can learn from human example. Fear is universal. The choice to overcome it can be universal as well. Lieutenant Chen's heart is not broken. It is extraordinary. And it is teaching us what we did not know we could become." Dr. Voss saved the file and looked up at Sarah teaching her class. She was gesturing animatedly, describing a rescue mission from Earth, showing how fear had guided her toward better decisions rather than paralyzed her. Her students, Keltharian, Chiton, avian, and human alike, listened intently, learning the lesson that would reshape the fleet forever. Courage was not a species trait. It was a choice. And now they all knew how to choose it.